Good morning and happy Monday, people. So we are here. I am about 7 minutes late, but hopefully you waited around for me. Today we are starting a new series. So if you joined me last week, then we spoke every day about different aspects of intermittent fasting to explain it and break it down and how it could be useful. And this week we are focusing on the ketogenic diet. So this is going to be an interesting week because I know there's going to be lots of questions, but we're going to try to break it down step by step. So make sure that you follow and you subscribe to the lives. Amira, wa alaikum salam. You got to click that little bell so that it'll give you a notification to let you know that I am live. But you can also set your calendar for Monday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. I will be coming live doing a 4-part series on butter, bacon, and misinformation, the truth about the ketogenic diet. So we are going to break it down from the history of a ketogenic diet to exactly how do you apply it, who is it good for, and who is it not good for. There are people who should not follow a ketogenic diet, so we're going to talk about that. And then on Thursday, we are going to have lunch together. So I came up with all of these topics, and I thought that actually showing you what a ketogenic diet is and how I lost 40 pounds and have been able to keep it off by putting butter in my coffee. And I'm going to show you how I do that and what I normally eat in a day on Thursday. So make sure you subscribe to the lives every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So today we are talking about the history of a keto diet. Where did it come from? Is this a fad? And why would somebody put butter in their coffee? So here we go. If you are interested in this and you are just want to know kind of like, why are people doing this? Whether you follow one or not, we're going to have an interesting conversation. So, ketogenic diet. Why is it called a ketogenic diet? The reason why it's called the ketogenic diet is because when you change the macronutrients in which you consume, your body produces ketones from energy instead of converting glucose into energy. And so it is a way for your body and the only way for your body to produce ketones. And so people started calling it a keto diet. The thing about a keto diet is that it has become super popular, particularly in the last 5 years. And so many people think like, wow, this is such a fad. Like, who came up with this? When people found out that Kim Kardashian does it, people were like, oh, it must be just one of those Kardashian fad things. But the interesting thing about a keto diet, and I'm going to try, let me stop trying to say that I'm going to be non-biased. Y'all know I follow a keto diet, so I might be just a tad bit biased. Okay, just a little bit. But, so a keto diet was actually developed literally 100 years ago. It did not just come out of thin air 5 years ago when celebrities started following it. And it initially began as a medical treatment. I'm going to actually read you a quick paragraph from my book, MR40 Method. So I have an entire chapter and section about the ketogenic diet inside of the book, which you can get, by the way, from shopfitmuslima.com. It is available in print again, so go ahead and grab your book if you haven't. So the thing about the ketogenic diet is that it was literally developed 100 years ago, right? So I should say discovered almost 100 years ago. Yes, 100 years ago. So in 1921, Dr. Russell Wilder, let me back up. I'm going to back up here. I am looking at page 55 for people that have the book. And it's the title of this section is called Where Did the Ketogenic Diet Come From? So in 1911, not 21, in 1911, a Parisian physician Gulop and Marie Bregan began documenting successfully treating epileptic children with fasting. This philosophy was most famously spread in the United States by Bernard McFadden, who was a physical fitness guru and publisher of a widely read health magazine, Physical Culture, for which circulation had reached 500,000 by the end of World War I. So, the original physicians, Gulop and Marie Bregan, had been treating children who were resistant to epilepsy, medication for epilepsy, right? So these are children who suffered from severe epilepsy, and the medications that they had at the time were not successful in treating them. And so what they would do is that they would put them on a 30-day water fast. That was very extreme. And they reported that 80% of their patients they cured of epilepsy. This became super popular. A fitness guru in the United States learned about them, started writing about them in his magazine, and he started telling people that, this can be an actual cure for epilepsy. Well, in 1921, so that was 1911. In 1921, Dr. Russell Wilder at the Mayo Clinic proposed a ketogenic diet. So what happened is once people started to learn about epilepsy being cured in these children with water fast, they knew that wasn't really practical for a lot of people. So they were like, what's happening in the body during a fast that is causing the brain to react by healing itself? That was the question at hand. What is going on with the fast? So remember last week when we talked about intermittent fasting, and I was telling you how a ketogenic diet was actually developed as an alternative to fasting, to extended fast, not even an intermittent fast. And that's how it came about, is that physicians in the United States, particularly at the Mayo Clinic, so the Mayo Clinic was actually one of the pioneers in creating and implementing a ketogenic diet. So doctors at the Mayo Clinic, particular Dr. Russell Wilder, he actually realized that the reason why the fast was working was because they were eliminating all foods or that they were drinking lots of water, but the fast was actually working because it was putting the body in ketosis. And when the body goes into ketosis, the body uses ketones for energy instead of glucose, but a byproduct of ketones is the body producing something called beta hydroxybutyrate, which was beneficial for the brain. That is actually what was causing the epilepsy to stop and to actually heal the brain. So he realized that if you completely remove carbohydrates and not other nutrients, that you can still put your body into ketosis. Okay, so that is when they developed the ketogenic diet, because they wanted to use food as medicine, because for some people epilepsy medicine was not working at the time, since they've come up with other very effective ways of treating epilepsy using medication. But at the time, some of the patients that were not responding to the medicine, they decided that they wanted to try a nutritional intervention. So they came up with the ketogenic diet. So lesson 1 for people who are listening who wants to know really the history of a ketogenic diet is that it was developed literally 100 years. This is 2021, 100 years ago at the Mayo Clinic to treat epilepsy. So that was the original reason why it was developed. And then as it began to be researched and studied, it has been shown to be beneficial for many other things, and different levels have been developed, right? So 1921, right? So they're telling people, sometimes they would put people on a 0 carb diet, right? The only thing they could eat was fat and protein. The medical intervention for a ketogenic diet. So this is an important distinction. There's a difference between medical ketosis and nutritional ketosis. There is a difference in the amount of carbohydrates that you are eating. It's also a difference in the level of ketosis that you are trying to achieve, right? So people who are using a ketogenic diet for medical reasons, it began with epilepsy. Following a medical ketogenic diet has been also shown to reduce cancer tumors. We know that it can also reverse diabetes. So all of those things have been shown to respond to the nutritional intervention of eliminating carbohydrates from the diet. When doctors put people on medical ketosis, their fat intake is as much as 80%, right? So that is a significant difference than nutritional ketosis, where your fat intake can be anywhere from 60, 65, 70% of your diet. People who are on medical ketosis, they are keeping their carbohydrates lower than 5%, lower than 5%, not 5 grams. Sometimes that does be the equivalent of 5 grams, but it's always lower than 5% because it keeps them in a deep state of ketosis, which is what the benefit comes from, right? So, 1900s. Oh, I should go back to, when did we discover that ketones was even a thing? That is something that the body actually produces. In the 1900s, the existence of ketones was discovered, right? Physicians used to literally taste the urine of their patients, and when it was sweet, it was actually, they knew that they actually had ketones, and that's how they would diagnose diabetes. We've come a long way. Congratulations, physicians. You don't have to taste pea sticks anymore. Right? So 1920s, it began a ketogenic diet has been has been used for drug-resistant epilepsy by Dr. Russell Wilder, MD of the Mayo Clinic. In 1967, scientists discovered that ketones can replace glucose in the brain. Further research found that the brain runs 25% better on ketones than glucose. So this is a comment that I get a lot every time I talk about eliminating carbohydrates. I always get at least one person that says, but our brain needs glucose. Your brain can't function off of carbohydrates. If you still believe that, then you are about, 80 years behind on the science. We discovered in 1967, or scientists discovered in 1967, that your brain does not need carbohydrate. It does not need glucose to function, that it actually functions on ketone. It can function on ketones. And in fact, when they've done memory tests for people when they were glucose dependent versus when they were ketone dependent, then they found that their brain actually functions better on ketones. So this is also really evident in the fact that the reason why a ketogenic diet was developed for people with epilepsy is because the brain actually begins to heal itself on a ketogenic diet. It also has led to a lot of really promising studies on the benefits of a ketogenic diet for people who have dementia, people who have Alzheimer's, people who have Parkinson's disease, people who have multiple sclerosis. There's lots of research. This is easy stuff to Google, people. Go to PubMed and Google ketones, epilepsy, ketones, Parkinson's, ketones, multiple sclerosis. Really easy medical stuff to Google. So after the Mayo Clinic here in the United States was like, okay, we're going to use a ketogenic diet as a nutritional intervention for children with epilepsy. What they found was it was very hard for families, or I shouldn't say very hard. It was challenging for families to stay consistent because of how strict the diet was, right? Less than 5% of the diet had to come from carbohydrates. And so what they did was now in 1971, so 1920s, they start treating kids and telling families like, your kid is drug-resistant epilepsy. Let's do this nutritional intervention. Less than 5% of their diet must come from carbohydrates. And as they begin to treat patients or recommend this nutritional treatment for patients, they found that families found it difficult because you may have one child. You can imagine having one child that has to be on this really strict diet, and you have other kids or other members of the family who does not, and so it becomes challenging for both the child and the family. And so in 1971 they began to research what was kind of like the maximum percentage of carbohydrates that somebody can have, or the maximum percentage of fat that they need in their diet in order for them to still get the medical benefits of being in ketosis. And so in 1971 they showed that 60% of the diet from fat, and they were particularly looking at MCT oil. Keep that in mind, MCT oil. I'm going to connect it to the why people on a ketogenic diet actually use lots of coconut oil, because the two are connected. So in 1971, a diet composed of 60% MCT oil was shown to be more practical and just as successful for patients and their families. And so what they did was they started playing around with the macronutrient ratio of the diet to see, like, if someone had only 30, right? So initially it was 80 to 90% of the diet needs to come from fat. And then it was like, okay, what happens if 70% of the diet comes from fat? Is there still a medical benefit? Okay, what happens if we go down to 65? What happens if we go down to 60? And they found that 60% of the diet from fat was kind of like the lowest they could go and still receive the medical benefits. And it became much more practical for families. So that is where we get the technical definition of what is a ketogenic diet, right? So sometimes people will be like, I'm on a low carb diet, but they are eating, instead of 50% carbs, they're eating 40% carbs. But their fat is not 60%, right? They're trying to eat low carb and low fat. That's not a ketogenic diet. Your fat has to be high in order for it to be a ketogenic diet. So we know that anywhere between 60 and 90% of your diet coming from fat is the range of a ketogenic diet, right? So once you have the fat part down, now we can make up the other 100 from protein and carbohydrates. But carbohydrates in general, for most ketogenic plans, do not exceed 20% at max, right? But 10% is kind of like the in-between standard that makes it more practical. So if you can imagine, if you wanted to be on the very edge of, most people will do this because they don't want to give up all their carbs, but that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later in the week. So if you can imagine, you only have 100%, which we do, right? And so in that 100%, you have to decide what part of that 100 is going to come from fat, what part of that 100 is going to come from protein, and what part is going to come from carbohydrates. If you remember from last week, I re-emphasized over and over that fat and protein are both essential macronutrients. Carbohydrates are not. Essential macronutrients are macronutrients that you must have in order to sustain life. Macronutrients that are not essential are things that you could live perfectly healthy, perfectly fine without. It does not create any kind of deficit in your body that is going to compromise your health. Carbohydrate is a non-essential nutrient, which means if you get stuck on an island somewhere and all you had was some animals to kill, you could definitely live off of that for almost forever, right? And go forage a few vegetables out the forest, and you didn't have to grow wheat or corn or anything like that, and you could live like that forever. Many people do, right? So, if you have 60% of so I want you to think about it like this. If you have 60%, this is the minimum of your diet comes from fat. You have 40% of your diet that needs to come from protein and carbohydrates. On a health level, you need at least 20% of your diet to come at least, and that is if you're not exercising at all, to come from protein, right? So now you have a 20% window because you got 60% from fat, 20% from protein. You have a 20% window left, 60 and 20 is 80, that you can play with between protein and carbohydrates. So if you decide, you know what, I am going to engage in resistance training because I'm not just trying to lose weight or I'm not just trying to manage my diabetes, I also want to build muscle, right? Which everybody should be doing, by the way. So I need to up my protein to 30%. And so now you've taken a part of that 20 that you have left, and now your carbohydrates come down to 10%. Say that you decide you want to run a marathon. You need to up your protein a little bit more because, believe it or not, hopefully you do believe it, people who engage in extended amount of cardiovascular exercise actually need more protein than people who do resistance training. So marathon runners actually use more protein than bodybuilders. And the reason that is that once a person's body is acclimated to bodybuilding and weightlifting, their body becomes much more efficient in using protein. But when you do lots of cardio, for example, you're running marathons, you're running 50 miles a week, you actually have your body actually uses lots more protein in order to sustain your muscles and things and organs while you're doing those exercises. So remember that. People think like, oh, if I don't lift weights, I don't need that much protein. You actually do if you're engaging in a lot of cardiovascular exercise. All right. So 1990s, right? The research found the keto diet to be effective for several rare neurological diseases. So things like dementia, Alzheimer's. Ketogenic diet has been shown to be really beneficial because remember, it is the most beneficial for I shouldn't say the most beneficial. It depends on what your health is like, right? For your brain, it is beneficial for brain health when your body produces ketones and as a side effect, beta hydroxybutyrate. So the 2000s. Now we have stars, athletes, CEOs, and regular people like us using keto for weight loss. So weight loss is one of the benefits of a ketogenic diet, but that is only one of many benefits. In my program, we use a ketogenic diet to balance hormones. So that's another benefit of the ketogenic diet. It helps to balance your hormones, starting with that insulin hormone, right? Because that is your domino hormone. Many other hormones, many other hormones are affected by insulin. So that is the first hormone we have to get under control. So today, a ketogenic diet is used for weight loss, and we'll go into later this week exactly how it actually works for weight loss and why it burns fat and how it completely got rid of or threw to the curb the idea of calorie counting and your weight is just because you eat too much. Not true, okay? It's way more complicated than that. Yes, it is also very beneficial for mental health. Thank you for reminding me about that, Asma. It is very beneficial. It has been shown to be effective for depression. It has been shown to be effective for anxiety. So not necessarily for allergies directly, Asma, but indirectly, so many people have a lot of food allergies, and because a ketogenic diet eliminates things like wheat, right, it actually helps people. It has also been shown to be helpful for things like Crohn's disease and other like digestive disturbances, things like that. So what is the question, my daughter Selwa, about the MR40 method workbook? So my daughter has a question about the workbook. What's the question about the workbook? So until she types that question, if anybody else has any questions about the history or the benefits of a ketogenic diet medically, again, I want to give a disclaimer that I am not a medical doctor. And I recommend that if you are going to use the ketogenic diet to treat an existing diagnosed illness, that you speak with your doctor, that you find a medical professional, a naturopathic doctor, or someone who specializes in your particular illness, who also treats with nutrition therapies, right? So this is another, drawback of the ketogenic diet, is because it is not something that is taught in medical school. It is not something that a lot of doctors are familiar with, right? So oftentimes you may find that your doctor is like, oh no, don't eat that much fat, you're gonna get heart disease. Like, not true, by the way. And it's because they are not familiar with it. When many doctors, they do what you do. They go Google it and they go read a blog, and then they make a recommendation to their to their patients, which they should not be doing, right? They should actually be going to read the research. I recommend that, you discuss it with your doctor, but also make sure that you are discussing it with a doctor who is familiar and open to treating disease with nutrition therapy, because it can be very beneficial for many diseases. All right. Yes, I said that I was going to talk about the connection between MCT oil and coconut oil. So the reason why coconut oil has become synonymous with a ketogenic diet is because MCT stands for medium chain triglycerides, right? So oils, pretty much all fats, come in they have three variations of their chains. Their short chain triglycerides, medium chain triglycerides, and then long chain triglycerides. Medium chain triglycerides, say that 3 times fast. Medium chain triglycerides have been shown to be extremely beneficial. So MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride, extremely beneficial for the brain. When they do many of the well-controlled ketogenic studies, and I'm going to say well-controlled ketogenic studies because a lot of times many of the ketogenic studies that report bad outcome is either because it was a survey and it wasn't really a study. It's like self-reported. And we know that most people, 80% of people, do not report accurately what they eat or how much they eat, right? So they've done research where they've actually watched people eat and then asked them later, how much did you eat? What did you eat? 80% of people, we do not estimate correctly what we eat and how much we eat, right? So, those type of ketogenic studies are very unreliable, right? So if you're asking somebody, so do you follow a ketogenic diet? And they're like, oh yeah, I follow a ketogenic diet, but my cholesterol went up. But you have no idea what they ate as a part of the ketogenic diet, whether or not they actually understood what they was actually doing, and if they were following ketogenic diet correctly, and that they're reporting accurately that they actually followed the diet, right? Because we got people who are like, I follow a ketogenic diet, but I carb cycle, right? And they're not really in ketosis most of the time, because like every 3 days they're eating bread because they're carb cycling, or they're following a ketogenic diet and they're eating bacon every single day, or steak every night, right? So, and they're not varying the source of their fats, right? All of that is really important in a well-formulated ketogenic diet. Yes, folks lie about the chips and they lie about the cookies. I'm just saying. No, I do not recommend weighing your food. So we're going to talk about exactly what we eat on a ketogenic diet on Thursday, because I don't want to make these lives like 2 hours long and then people don't actually sit down and get the information. So I'm trying to stick to 30 minutes. So I broke it up. I'm going to put a schedule on the page so you'll know what days we're going to talk about what. Thank you very much for my compliment on my scarf. I appreciate it. Thank you. Going live, I got to pull out scarves. Like, I can't wear the same hijab every day. So I got to like pull out scarves that I haven't worn in like years so that I can try to look a little bit cute, you know. Okay. Good. Alhamdulillah. Saliha says she lost 10 pounds this week sticking to keto and fasting. Yes, that's one of the benefits of keto. Oh, I didn't even finish the MCT. I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked. So the reason why coconut oil has become synonymous with a ketogenic diet is because every oil has a different ratio of long chain, short chain. Coconut oil actually has the highest concentration of medium chain triglycerides of all oils. And so because many of the well-formed studies about ketogenic diets actually intentionally include lots of MCT oil, and it's actually, so when you buy it as a supplement, they've actually just removed only the MCT oil particles or chains from the overall oils, and it's basically in a concentrated form. That is the form of oil that they're actually using in many of the well-formulated studies that shows the benefits. So MCT oil, that's actually a whole live in itself, all the benefits of MCT oil. And so we have lots to talk about. So make sure that you subscribe to the page if you're on Facebook, that you click the little notification button inside of my profile. If you're on Instagram, you have to go up to those little 3 dots, and then you have to put like, you want to know when I go live, when I post something. Make sure you get those notifications because we have lots of stuff to talk about. Yes, so Hydra said, does the MR40 plan help to curb sugar cravings? Yes, because it eliminates sugar. So here's the thing about sugar cravings is there's no such thing of curing a sugar addiction by eating less sugar. In order for you to cure the addiction, you have to eliminate it. And then your body will actually reset itself and you won't be addicted, and you'll actually be able to taste food, right? And taste the sweetness that's inside of those foods, right? So that is the history of the ketogenic diet and where it comes from. So now you know several things. Quick recap. Ketogenic diet was developed 100 years ago in 1921. We should actually have a keto birthday party this year because it's literally 100 years. This is like the 100-year anniversary of Dr. Wilder discovering creating a ketogenic diet based off of trying to cure epilepsy, right? So super important, huh? And also a note for people who are having who have diagnosed illnesses. It also shows how important it is for you to understand how nutrition affects your body, right? So doctors, they are the bandage, right? The medicine is just a bandage. We want to be able to go and heal the body, not just treat it. And that's what nutrition can do. Questions. I'm with 5 minutes questions, right? 5 minutes questions. I will take questions for 5 minutes and then we are off to the races. All right. So I want you to make sure that you know that a ketogenic diet is 100 years old. The second important part for you to also remember so that you can have the knowledge is that our brain functions. We found out in 1967 that the brain functions, not only does the brain function well on ketones, but it actually functions better on ketones. The other thing that's important about that we talked about today is a ketogenic diet range is one. It is based on the fat intake that you pull in and the carbohydrates that you are reducing, right? So that is the mark of a ketogenic diet, and a ketogenic diet has a minimum of 60% fat. But you can go up to medical ketogenic diets have gone up to as much as 90% fat. I personally cannot even imagine, right? Like what a diet of 90% fat looks like. It must be like just all fat bombs all day. But if your life depended on it, you would do it. So that's really important. The other part of a ketogenic history that you need to that you want to understand. Oh, I forgot the most important part. What actually happens to your body when you are in ketosis? What makes it a keto? Your body produce ketones. I should have started off with that. I'm going to make notes for next time. All right. So, our body has two forms of energy. I want you to think of it just like a car, right? So now we have cars that run on gas and we have cars that run on electricity, right? So our body is a vehicle and it must have energy to run, just to talk, to breathe, to our heart to beat, our lungs to function. You need energy for everything. So we don't just need energy to go for a run. You need energy to lay on the couch, Netflix and chill, right? Because every organ in your body still has to function, so it needs energy. Our body, most people have, let's use this scenario or this metaphor. Most people have cars that run on gas, just like most people body run on glucose, which comes from carbohydrates. So that's most people, right? You're talking probably 80% of the world. I'm just throwing out a number. Just like 80% of cars now, right, run off of gas. When you have a car, a Tesla, right? So this is actually a really good scenario. It's like turning your body from, I don't know, Kia to a Tesla. Hey. So when you do not have carbohydrates to run off, or your body cannot use carbs in order for it to convert to energy, your body then has a second form of macronutrients that it can turn into energy. It can now tap into fat to turn fat into energy. So it takes both the fat that you consume and the excess fat of your body, and it converts both of those into ketones and use ketones as energy, right? So just like an electric car doesn't run on gas, it runs on electricity as an alternative form of fuel. Your body has the ability to do the exact same thing, and everybody does, right? So this is a physiological benefit of being a human being. If you are a human being, then this is the way that your body has the potential to function. So when you do not give your body carbohydrates, your body then converts fat into ketones and use ketones as energy. That is where your energy is coming from, right? So this is also one of the reasons, the difference between when a person is dependent on glucose, they say, well, I need to eat every 3 to 4 hours. If I don't eat, then I feel tired. I need to give myself some energy. So I'm not even talking about like eating unhealthy stuff, even if you're eating healthy stuff, right? Now, I mean, no shade, but this is also one of the reasons why people who are vegan, they tend to graze all day long and they feel like they need to eat all of the time, right? They're always grazing because a vegan diet is a dependent on carbohydrates. Everything that you eat in a vegan diet, it is a carb-based food. And so when you are dependent on glucose, your body generally uses up carbohydrates, all foods that are carb-based foods. So you're talking about rice, potatoes, pasta, fruits. They're all metabolized within 2 hours, right? They all get metabolized. I think beans may take 2 to 3 hours, right? So these are high carb foods. So if your food is completely metabolized in 2 hours, after the food is metabolized, your body has used up all of its energy source and you need to give it more energy. And so you got to go and eat again. So that's the reason why people who are vegan, people who eat very high carb diets, they do graze all day long. They eat 3 meals, they eat 2 snacks because they have to, because the body is dependent on them constantly giving it fuel in order for it to produce energy. When your body is dependent on fat for fuel, like when you follow a ketogenic diet, fat has a much longer window and it also shifts your hunger hormones and you're actually not hungry, right? So people who follow a ketogenic diet find fasting easier, right? This is also there's lots of benefits of adding intermittent fasting in a ketogenic diet. We'll talk about that on another time. But this is one of the reasons why it makes both of those that a perfect marriage, is because when you're following a ketogenic diet, number one, your body wants you to give it fat in order to acclimate it to burning fat as energy, but it also can use your own body fat. So when you don't give it food, it's like, all right, bet, I'm gonna go take some love handles. All right. All right. So here I see your question that says, what food groups harm your body if you're taken with a keto diet? Carbohydrates. And does it have any side effects? So we're going to talk about this on Thursday. We're going to talk specifically about food. I don't want to kind of like mix up all of the information. So we're going to specifically talk about foods and what to eat and what not to eat on a ketogenic diet on Thursday. So that is actually how a ketogenic diet actually works. Because you eliminate carbohydrates, your body is now like, okay, I'm going to use fat as fuel, and it takes fat and it converts it to ketones, and that is the fuel that you are using. This is another reason why ketogenic diets are now becoming much more popular for endurance athletes, people who run Ironman and ultra marathoners, because when they're running very long races, they actually have to keep glucose tablets and gels and things like that with them, because again, if your body is dependent on glucose, once you run out of glucose, you have to refuel yourself. But when you are your body is dependent on fat, right? If you're not eating fat, your body is like, okay, bet you got extra body fat. I'm going to go and, just tap into body fat. So you're literally carrying around your fuel source, right? Our goal is to carry around less fuel source, but that's a conversation for another day. All right. So that is all. That's all we have for today. It says, after you acclimate to keto, will you slow down carb burning when you slip up? No, you don't slow down carb burning when you go off of it. No, the rate in which you burn carbohydrates or burn any metabolize any macronutrient is based on your metabolism. It does not change based on you having a ketogenic diet or a carb-based diet. All right. So that is all for the day, people. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow. We are going to do part 2. Make sure that you tune in 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is part 1 of a 4-part series about bacon, butter, and the misinformation about the ketogenic diet. All right? Assalamu alaikum. Oh, and by the way, I'm Mubaraka Ibrahim, and I am your health and happiness coach. Assalamu alaikum.